In the red clay of Vuelta Abajo, one farmer's obsession with a stubborn leaf changed the taste of cigars forever.
Welcome to the Cigar and Whiskey Podcast, where every episode takes you deeper into the stories, traditions, and flavors that make cigars and spirits unforgettable. So pour a glass, light a stick, and settle in.
It was the early 1930s in western Cuba. The region tobacco growers called El Paraíso del Humo, the paradise of smoke. Here, the soil was red and rich, the air heavy with morning mist, and the smell of curing tobacco drifted through the valley like incense. Among the farmers was Diego Rodriguez, a quiet man with an ear for wind and an eye for leaf. His neighbors called him El Loco del Tabaco, the tobacco madman, because he spent his nights crossbreeding plants under lantern light, convinced he could teach tobacco to be stronger, silkier, and more beautiful. It was a strange ambition in those days. Most farmers were content to grow what their fathers grew. But Diego wasn't. He wanted a wrapper leaf so perfect it would shimmer like satin and taste like sunlight and spice. The problem was that every time he thought he'd done it, nature reminded him who was in charge. His early hybrids were thin, brittle, and constantly under attack by blue mold, the plant disease that haunted every Cuban farmer's sleep. When neighbors saw him burning another failed crop, they'd shake their heads. Diego's trying to reinvent tobacco, they'd laugh. Next, he'll be breeding cigars that roll themselves. But Diego kept going. Year after year, crop after crop, he tested and tinkered. He planted under shade cloths, changed soil patterns, and even adjusted humidity by channeling water through the fields. And then, one season, something miraculous happened. A new strain began to rise, taller, healthier, richer in color. When it cured, it gave off a deep, sweet aroma unlike anything else in the valley. He had done it. The seed came from El Corojo, the name of his modest farm near San Luis. And soon, the leaf itself became known as Corojo. By the 1940s, word had spread through Havana's cigar houses that Diego's wrapper leaf was something special. It was supple, aromatic, and burned evenly with a reddish gold sheen. Factories competed to buy as many bales as they could. Corojo became the gold standard. It soon wrapped the most famous cigars in the world: Partagas, Montecristo, H. Upmann, Cohiba. Every brand that defined Cuban excellence carried Corojo on its skin. The legend said that if a cigar wore Corojo, it was dressed in royalty. But perfection comes at a price. Corojo was beautiful but fragile, a diva of a leaf. Too much sun, and it blistered. Too much humidity, and it molded. Too little care, and it turned bitter. As one roller joked, Corojo's like my ex-wife. Gorgeous, expensive, and impossible to manage. Still, Diego's leaf endured for decades, defining the Cuban cigar's golden age. Then, history shifted. When Fidel Castro rose to power in 1959 and nationalized Cuba's tobacco industry, everything changed. Factories were taken over, land was seized, and many of the island's best growers and blenders fled overnight. They carried what they could, mostly memories and a few handfuls of seed hidden in shirt pockets. For those who stayed, Corojo was too delicate to export, and its limited yields couldn't sustain the new government's massive production demands. Within a few years, the original Corojo was quietly retired, but the leaf refused to die. Let's pause for a moment, and when we come back, I'll tell you how Corojo's genetic descendants now dominate the cigar world, and how a forgotten farmer's obsession quietly rewrote the DNA of tobacco itself.
You're listening to the Cigar and Whiskey Podcast, your companion for cigar culture, whiskey wisdom, and everything in between. Want more? Visit us anytime at cigarandwhiskeyguide.com for articles, reviews, and pairing tips.
When the modern cigar boom hit in the 1990s, tobacco scientists and growers were already chasing the ghost of Diego Rodriguez's creation. The problem was that true Corojo, beautiful as it was, had the constitution of fine silk in a thunderstorm, magnificent to look at, miserable to grow. In the 1970s and 80s, Cuban agronomists began experimenting with cross-cultivation, blending Corojo's flavor with sturdier strains like Criollo. Their goal was simple: protect that signature spice and aroma, but make the leaf more resistant to blue mold, black shank, and heavy rainfall. The result was the first major hybrid, Habano 2000. Tough, hardy, but still recognizable. It wasn't perfect. Many smokers found it a little bitter, but it proved something vital. Corojo's DNA could travel. Soon, seed programs in Honduras and Nicaragua pushed even further. They developed Corojo-99, a more aromatic descendant, and Criollo-98, bred for elasticity and color consistency. Together, they became the backbone of the premium cigar renaissance of the late 20th century. Even today, most modern wrapper names, Habano Rosado, Honduran Corojo, Nicaraguan Corojo, Corojo-99 hybrid, trace back genetically to Diego's original seed stock. The Leaf's DNA has been crossbred, adapted, and reimagined on nearly every continent where tobacco can be grown. And if you want proof of its reach, look no further than the fields of Esteli, Honduras, or Ecuador's cloud-shaded valleys. Each carries a whisper of that red Cuban soil. As one agronomist joked, you can take the Corojo out of Cuba, but you can't take Cuba out of Corojo. When the modern cigar renaissance blossomed in the 1990s, companies like Aganorsa Leaf in Nicaragua proudly declared their harvest authentic Corojo. They weren't exaggerating. They were growing the great-grandchildren of Diego's plant. And in an age where cigar smokers chase limited editions and exotic blends, Corojo remains a badge of authenticity, a whisper from the past in every puff. Its flavor is instantly recognizable, earthy, peppery, with a touch of sweetness that lingers like caramelized cedar. The kind of taste that makes even a seasoned smoker pause and say, that's real tobacco. The irony is that Diego Rodriguez never lived to see his work conquer the world. He died long before the revolution, long before the hybrids and the marketing buzz. But his fingerprints are everywhere. Every cigar that gleams with that reddish hue, every smooth, oily wrapper that burns evenly to the end, that's his legacy. And there's something poetic about it, isn't there? A farmer who refused to accept nature's limits changed an entire art form. He didn't do it for fame or fortune. He did it for love of the leaf. One of his surviving relatives once said, "My uncle used to talk to his tobacco like it could hear him. Maybe that's why it listened." So the next time you smoke a cigar wrapped in Corojo, think of the man in that red Cuban soil, squinting against the sun, whispering to his plants, convinced that somewhere inside them was perfection waiting to be found. He was right. And maybe that's what all great cigars have in common. A little stubbornness, a little obsession, and a lot of patience. Just like the people who smoke them.
Thanks for listening to the Cigar and Whiskey podcast. Subscribe and share with a fellow aficionado, and keep the journey going at cigarandwhiskeyguide.com, where every puff and pour has a story.